Over the last 5 years, I've helped dozens of e-commerce brands scale past 8 figures in annual revenue. And the biggest thing I've noticed over the last 12 to 18 months is that the brands that are pulling ahead aren't just winning because they're spending more on Meta or producing a whole bunch of new ad creatives or focusing on their funnel. Yes, those things matter, but there are some very other important shifts happening in the market right now that I'm not seeing anyone else talk about. So I wanted to make this video to explain what those changes are and what the brands that are scaling to 8 figures and beyond are doing differently as a result. So you can see that what used to work for most e-commerce brands simply isn't going to work anymore. Let's dive in. So let's start with why the just run better ads era is ending. For the last few years, the path to growth for most e-commerce brands looked exactly the same. You spend more on Meta ads, you produce better creatives, you optimize your landing pages, you run your email marketing, and you scale. And that worked for a while because if you had a decent product and you could acquire customers at a reasonable cost, you could grow. But things have changed a lot since then. And if that's the only way you're trying to grow, chances are you're already seeing the effects of that. So what's actually changed though? There's a few things happening at the same time. First of all, competition is a huge factor. As time goes on, more and more competitors enter the market, making it harder to differentiate. On top of that, we're seeing consumer spend pulling back because of the looming recession narrative. And this means customers are more hesitant to buy and more price sensitive than they were a few years ago. And then if you're selling within the US, tariffs are adding another layer of cost pressure on top of everything else. What you end up with is a situation where it's harder to stand out, harder to get customers to convert, and your margins are getting squeezed from multiple directions at the same time. And here's what that actually looks like in practice when you're trying to scale. You increase your ad spend to try and grow, but your CPAs climb. Your revenue goes up, but your profitability goes down. And all of a sudden, you're doing more sales, but you're making less money. So you pull back on spend, you stabilize, and then you try again. But the same thing happens over and over, and you hit the same ceiling. This is what I see with so many brands, and it turns into the cycle of constantly needing to acquire more new customers in the previous month just to grow a little bit, not even to really scale. Now, the reason this keeps happening isn't because the ads aren't good enough. The deeper issue is that when your entire growth model depends on new customer acquisition, you are completely at the mercy of ad costs, algorithm changes, and competition. And the math just doesn't work long term because only about 20 to 30% of your customers are going to come back and buy a second time, let alone a third or fourth time. That means the majority of your revenue is coming from first-time buyers. And to keep growing, you need to keep spending more and more on acquiring new customers every single month just to maintain or even just grow a little bit. So the brands that are actually scaling past this and growing to 8 figures are approaching this in a fundamentally different way. And that is exactly what I want to get into next. Now, before I continue, if you're running an e-commerce brand and you're having a hard time scaling profitably, definitely book a call with me in the first link in the video description because that's exactly what we help e-commerce brands do. Now back to the video. So now let's talk about why the brands that are pulling ahead are winning on business economics. The e-commerce brands that are scaling into 8 and 9 figures right now are not winning because they have better ads than you. They're winning because every customer that they acquire ends up being worth so much more than their competitors' customers. And because of that, they can afford to spend more on acquiring those customers, which means they can outbid you on Meta, absorb rising costs, and still be profitable at the end of the month. I use this analogy a lot, and I think it makes it really easy to understand. Every e-commerce brand is a leaky bucket. You've got water coming in at the top, which is your new customers, and that water that's leaking out through holes in the bucket, and that is your customers who purchase once and never come back and buy again. And the brands that scale the fastest and actually sustain that scale are the ones focused on plugging those holes so that every new customer coming in stays in the bucket longer and spends more over time. So the question becomes, how are they actually doing that? Well, it comes down to 3 areas. The first is product expansion. If you're running a 1 or 2 product brand right now, you're capped at how much LTV you can make per customer. There's only so many times someone is going to come back and buy the same product from you. Unless, of course, you're a product that people love, like AG1 or IMA, in which case you can scale pretty far with one product. But even those brands introduce variations of the same product, like different flavors. And generally speaking, the brands that we see scaling to 8 figures and even 9 figures are introducing new products every 6 to 9 months. And there's a reason for that. It gives you more products to upsell and cross-sell to your existing customers in your post-purchase flows and your email campaign. And what that means is that each customer is spending more with you over time. It also opens up entirely new segments of the market which your original products may not have reached. And that means you're not just increasing lifetime value, you're also expanding who you can acquire on the front end. The second is subscription and repeat purchase models, and this is huge. If you can introduce a subscribe and save option for your product, the compounding revenue effect is massive. You're no longer just acquiring a customer, you're acquiring a subscriber. And the lifetime value on that subscriber is significantly higher because they're automatically buying from you on a recurring basis. We've seen this firsthand with our clients, is that when you have a subscribe and save offer, your revenue has this compounding effect month over month because you're not starting from zero every single month. Now, I know what you might be thinking. If you don't sell a consumable product, you might be thinking this doesn't apply to you. You can get creative here. For example, apparel brands sending new styles every month, or taking your product and making it consumable by nature. For example, take this air purifier, which sells an air purifier, but the consumable nature is the filters, right? They could just decide to sell the air purifier and that's it. But actually, they have a subscribe and save offer with filter refills. Or take this brand, for example, which is a mattress cover that helps you track your sleep. Now, they could have just sold the cover and that's it, but actually they have a plan for their app, right, which gives you the insights that you need, and they monetize that as well. Oura Ring does the same thing. So what this brand has done is they've made it obligatory for you to be in a subscription. And love it or hate it, this brand is doing extremely well. Aura is doing extremely well. These are 8-figure brands. So the third area is your retention marketing system. And this really ties the first two areas together. You can have great products and a subscription offer, but if you're not staying top of mind and staying in front of your customers on a consistent basis, but if you're not actively staying in front of your customers and giving them reasons to come back, they just won't. Email and SMS marketing is one of the most straightforward ways to plug the holes in the leaky bucket, but most brands are either not doing enough of it or doing it poorly. First thing is you need your core flows built and optimized. Welcome series, post-purchase, abandoned cart, abandoned checkout, browse abandonment, win-back series, and replenishment if you have a consumable product. On top of that, you need to be sending 3 to 6 campaigns per week to different segments, not just blasting your entire list with the same email, because that's a surefire way to tank your deliverability, and your Klaviyo bill is going to go up without the revenue to show for it. And then you need to be constantly testing and optimizing across all of it. Subject lines, content, send times, segmentation. Now, the way we measure whether this is actually working comes down to 2 LTV benchmarks. Your 30, 60, or 90-day LTV should be at least 30% higher than your first order AOV, depending on the products that you're selling. And your 365-day LTV should be at least 100% higher than your first order AOV. And if you're not hitting those numbers, there's a lot of room to improve on this side of the business. So I'll give you an example here from one of the brands that we work with, and also to just show you that those numbers that I mentioned are benchmarks, they're the gold standard, but it does depend heavily on what product that you're selling. So take them with a grain of salt. So we can see here, the AOV for this brand is $123. And 3 months in, if we were looking at a 30% increase, we're just not hitting it. We're nowhere near it. But actually, this brand gets a lot of the LTV further on in the purchase journey. We can see at 6 months is when we hit that 30% increase. And then 12 months in, we're over 70% higher than our first order AOV. So that's when it really kicks into gear. And it makes sense for this brand. Now, if you're selling something that repeats every 30 days, then yes, you probably want to be looking at a 30-day, 60-day LTV to try and get that to at least 30% or higher. But if, for example, you're selling expensive furniture, then you're probably not going to be looking at your 30, 60, even 90-day LTV. You're probably looking at month 6, month 12, right? Those are pretty much going to be your benchmarks. And getting someone to spend double with you in 12 months as a high-end furniture brand is unlikely. Again, you have to apply the benchmarks to the product that you're selling. So when you put all 3 of these together, it changes the entire dynamic of how you grow. You can maintain the same level of ad spend, acquire customers profitably, and still grow revenue month over month because of your retention machine and your lifetime value that compounds. Rising costs don't hurt you nearly as much as your competitors because every single customer that you acquire is worth more to you. And if Meta has a rough month or rolls out an update that throws off performance, you're not panicking because your business doesn't live and die by new customer acquisition alone. So let's talk about why the P&L is the new growth lever. Now, this last part is something I don't see enough brands paying attention to, and it's probably the most important thing we're going to cover today. All of the stuff we just covered, from product expansions to subscriptions to retention marketing, none of it actually matters if you don't have clear financial visibility into your business. And this is where the gap between 7-figure brands and 8-figure brands really becomes obvious. You'd be surprised by how many brands that are doing 7 figures and even 8 figures that I've spoken to that do not have their P&L together, and they genuinely don't know their real numbers. They have a feeling of where they're at based on what they're seeing in Meta or Triple Whale, but that's not the same as actually knowing exactly what they are. And the reason the P&L matters so much is because it's where your marketing targets should actually come from. First of all, your contribution margin. Having clarity on your P&L gives you specific targets for your contribution margin. And contribution margin is what's left after you subtract all variable costs, your COGS, your paid acquisition spend, your fulfillment, your payment processing, the ad spend, subtracting all of that from your revenue. And that remaining amount, your contribution margin, is what's left to cover your fixed expenses. And if you don't know that number, you're basically guessing what you can afford to spend on new customer acquisition. And guessing is exactly how brands end up scaling revenue but losing money, which I promise you happens way more often than you think. The brands that are scaling profitably are using their P&L to set their marketing targets, not the other way around. And on my screen here, I have an example of a P&L with completely randomized numbers. And this is what you should have. This is what you should be looking at every single month for your brand. And if you don't have this in place, then you can get an accountant to do this for you every single month, or maybe a fractional CFO. And a fractional CFO can actually analyze this, because one thing is getting the statement and getting all these numbers. Okay, cool. But a fractional CFO, what they're going to be able to do is they're going to be able to go through this and help you identify where the opportunities are to reduce your expenses, to get more efficient at acquiring customers, They're going to help you set more clearer ad targets. If you give them a goal to say, hey, we want to be generating 20K profit per month, 30K profit a month, whatever the number is, they're going to help you reverse engineer that to say, okay, this is how much you need to be spending on ads. This is how much you need to acquire per customer. This is what your expenses need to be. They're going to help you figure all that out. But one thing is just figuring out at the beginning and having a forecast, which I also recommend you do. Have a forecast for the year, plan it out, have a budget. But at the same time, this needs to be optimized and changed in real time depending on what's actually happening. And it's not enough just you having access to this. You need your marketing team or your agency who's doing your ads to also have visibility into this. And what that means is that everyone is on the same page and everyone is working towards the same financial outcome. Without this, there's a huge disconnect. Your marketing team is just optimizing towards some arbitrary ROAS number, and your finance team are trying to scramble to understand why we're not profitable. And this is something that we do with all of our clients. We get access to the P&L so we can make sure that our marketing efforts are driving profitability and not just driving up revenue. So if you're running an e-commerce brand and you want a partner that actually ties marketing and finance together to build a profitable e-commerce business, then go to the first link in the video description to book a call directly with me. On that call, I'll get more context on your current situation and see if there's a fit for us to come in and help. And even if it's not a good fit, I'll still give you my best advice on what to do next. And at my agency, we only work with a handful of clients at any given time, which means that we can put more time and attention into each and every one of them. And that's actually how we've been able to help dozens of brands that we've worked with over the years scale to 8 figures. We treat the ads, the retention, and P&L as one system. So again, click the first link below to book your call. And if you want a full breakdown on how to scale your e-commerce brand to $10 million per year, watch this video next.